New from Shameless on 4K and Blu-ray, depending what edition you want, is The Card Player, Dario Argento's Giallo from the early 2000s, and it's one that always seems to divide people. It doesn't quite have that operatic madness of Suspiria. It doesn't have the sort of razor sharp murder set pieces of Deep Red, and it doesn't have that glorious Giallo atmosphere of the 70s and 80s, but it does definitely have that Giallo fever, that kind of feeling of everything's just a little bit not right.
He's filming her life with a webcam.
I love the premise to this. The setup is simple, nasty. A serial killer is abducting women in Rome and forcing the police to play online poker against him. If the police win, the victim lives, and if they lose, the victim is then murdered live on a webcam for them to see. That's an incredibly strong hook. I really like that. It takes Argento's career-long obsession with looking and watching images and murder, and it shifts it into the digital world. Instead of a black-gloved killer, we get someone in an apartment. The horror is mediated through a screen. The crime is online. The police are watching. The killer is watching. And the victim becomes trapped inside this grotesque spectacle. But it's also dated with that early 2000s internet kind of feeling that you had in a lot of movies. There is something not quite as sharp. I understand Argento's playing within that playground that he loves, but some of his other films had a far more interesting idea and delivery to some of those set pieces. Here you're trapped by the low quality video and with the smaller computers at the time, and it just kind of minimises everything just a little bit. We've got two main characters here. We've got Inspector Anna. She's kind of the film's emotional centre. She isn't a glamorous kind of heroine as you would expect. She's a police officer trying to work through a case that keeps turning murder into performance, and it matters because the film is less interested in kind of dream logic and more interested in the process. How she finds information is how she is deducting, how she's finding clues. The performance is straight-laced and gives the film, it keeps the film grounded while still maintaining that slightly ridiculous storyline that it has. She feels like someone who's trying to impose order on a killer who's using technology to remove all sense of control. On the other hand, you have got John Brennan. He's an Irish Interpol agent, and he brings a slightly different and sometimes chaotic energy to the film.
Why did you walk me home?
Because you can understand.
What's the point? Now, why don't you...
And you can have the talk.
Why don't you come upstairs and keep me company?
He can be calm and direct. He gives the investigation a bit of an outside perspective, and he feels measured in his decisions. But the dynamic between him and Anna is not as heightened or as melodramatic as some other Argento pairings. But that kind of suits the more procedural tone of the film. They're trying to catch someone hiding behind screens, usernames, there's a digital distance, and the code structure of the game that they play. But he's also a bit chaotic. You know, he's alcoholic, he's got a bit of a history, as does everyone in this. He isn't a complete person. He's fractured in a certain way, focused 100% on the job at hand, and then goes a little bit off the rails when he's off duty for a little while. And it adds a kind of nice pairing, like I said, but not as strong as some of the other ones we've had in Argento films.
What about the old cases you were looking into?
Russian roulette?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the kid who got killed, one of his friends studied in America. Computer technology, we think.
One of the most interesting aspects here is watching Argento deal with digital technology. He has always been fascinated by vision, whether it was eyes or cameras or windows, mirrors or witnesses, images that revealed something and hid something at the same time. Here that obsession becomes a webcam. The police can see the victim but they can't reach her, they can watch the game but they can't control the outcome. They're forced into the same position as the viewer. And it's a strong idea for the film, and the screen becomes both the evidence and the weapon. I just don't think the technology's quite there to give it a better look than what it actually has. The poker concept, though, is pulpy. It is the thing that is the main hook of the film, and it's something that works, and it gives it a kind of ticking clock structure. The police aren't just looking for the killer after the fact, they're being forced to participate in these crimes. It makes the murders very much feel like a performance-led idea, and it's specifically for them, almost as if the killer is targeting them as much as he is the victims in this one. And it's just a great idea, but it never quite feels like classic Argento. It does feel a little bit colder and a little bit plainer. It's more procedural and it's less visually extravagant and less surreal, and I feel those are some of the traits that I look forward to in Argento's movies. The colour schemes and the wild architecture are mostly gone, bringing in kind of muted colours, and the murder sequences aren't as elaborate as some of his best work. It almost feels more akin to a European crime thriller rather than a full-blooded giallo.
Andy told me to give you this.
Oh! Now that you've reached your destination, you'll see 2 doors before you. One leads to your salvation, the other to your death.
One thing that always kind of irks me a little bit about these movies, and it's not the fault of the film, it's how dated a lot of the technology looks. Yes, it's period specific, and the idea of the internet as something mysterious and dangerous and slightly unknowable is an interesting idea, but we have moved so quickly from that, and it's hard to kind of look at this time now and see the same kind of feelings and the same kind of fear that they would have had at that time, because the world has changed so much more. I would say that one of the standouts here is Claudio Simonetti's score. I really enjoyed it because the visuals are much more stripped back. The music has to do a lot of the mood work, and Simonetti brings that electric energy that helps push the poker sequences and the investigation scenes forward. It can be heavy-handed at times, but I feel like the film really needs that. What works best for me is the central concept. I absolutely love the idea of the police being forced to take part of this situation and gamble with the lives of the victims. The webcam angle makes it feel like Argento's trying to modernise some of the things he's focused on before. The film can feel a little bit too restrained though, on the other hand, and it doesn't have that visual madness that Argento sometimes brings to his film. It doesn't have the colour or the movement or those really wildly theatrical murder sequences. But you can see he's trying to move with the times. It's not doing repeats of what he's done before, and I can appreciate that as well. The best way to approach The Card Player is not as a lost masterpiece, because it isn't that. It's a later film in which Argento is asking, what does Giallo look like when murder moves onto a sort of smaller screen? What makes that interesting? Maybe it's not great, but it's good, it's solid, and it's still an interesting film to check out. I'm glad to have it. I had read a lot about this movie, and I found it to be, still a good enough film that I would go back to and watch again.
Did you get a look at him?
No. He was wearing a ski mask.
Sorry for butting in. Did you hear anything unusual?
I thought the 4K looked pretty good. Even though the film doesn't have that wild colour or architecture, you still get the Rome locations, you still get the police station interiors and the computer screens and the darker sequences that just kind of pop a little bit more. It's a good 4K, and the presentation can really help the texture and the tension of the film that was probably diminished too quickly. I like this one. Let's dive into the disc and have a look at the extras. Here we are in the disc for the card player. First up we have Watch Me While I Kill, which is an interview with Dario Argento. It runs for 17 minutes 45 seconds and is talking all about the obstacles he faced bringing it to the screen, his visual style, and a little bit about Simonetti's score as well. Next up we have On the Set of the Card Player, which runs for 9 minutes 35 seconds, which is an archival behind the scenes featurette. Next we have Playing the Game, an interview with Stefania Rocca. You know, she's talking a little bit about the film, how she was really appreciated Argento, a little bit trepidatious about meeting him, talks about some of the stories we're working with him and how he was just a great guy. Next we have Game Over, which runs for 8 minutes 31 seconds. This is an interview with Fiore Argento, who talks about her character, how she was supposed to be a bit of light in the darkness, and how she kind of changed her character's look to fit in with that. Next we have Sharp Cuts, which runs for 20 minutes and 4 seconds, which is with the editor, Walter Fasano, again just gushing over Argento and his how he became the editor on this film. Next we have Taking Risks, which is 8 minutes 45 seconds, and it's an interview with Franco Farini, who's talking about the screenplay. He's the writer on this one, and the kind of research that he did into this to bring Argento's vision to the forefront. Then we have A Chip and a Chair, which is 11 minutes 59 seconds, and it's an interview with the production designer. And finally we have The Killer's Choice, which is 7 minutes 10 seconds. Also included in this set is a little poster and an art card and an 18-page booklet on the film which talks about the restoration and some other interesting facts. That's the extras for the card player. So there we have it. The card player isn't top tier Argento, but that's not a bad thing, because even when he's not at his best, it's still really good, and the card player is a really good film. It's really interesting, and do not write this one off. This is worth adding to the collection. I'm so happy to have this on 4K and amongst my other Argento 4K sets as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of his kind of later movies that I was probably scared off of by a lot of chatter and reviews that I had read. Maybe they're not as bad as what people make out as. Might not be the height of Argento, but still offer something worth checking out. I'd love to know your thoughts on the card player. Let me know in the comment box below whether you're picking up this release, if you're getting the 4K or the Blu-ray, and your thoughts on the film. Where do you think it stands within Argento's filmography? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment box below. As always, there is more content up here. You can see more of my stuff. In the description box below are links to Patreon, membership program, and manvfilm.com. Always in which you can support. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.